and we will be off and running. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Every, Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good to be here. I see some of you have already done it. But if you please in the chat, tell me where you were dialing in from today. That will be super helpful. We get to know where everyone is coming from. So I'm right now in not so sunny London, in rainy London, but nothing changed. Um, Based in West London. And I'm excited to be here today. I run a business called The Change Hive. Essentially, we help service-based businesses primarily with growth and sale planning. So we get them ready for exit and for sale. And we do this by helping them adopt systems and making sure that they are as optimal as possible. But in the course of doing my business, I've come across a few entrepreneurs that are earlier in their journey and they usually need help with go-to-market planning. So how can I find my first initial customers? And that's part of why I've developed this framework today that I'll be talking us through. Um, I have to just say quick caveat. I think some of these principles are going to be applicable even if you're a product-based business owner, but it's primarily targeted towards service-based entrepreneurs. If you're a product-based business owner, so things like you sell hair care products or you sell like actual physical products, there's a bit more that you need to consider. So things like your cost of production, your logistics, your returns, your damages, all of that needs to be taken into account. I will not be covering that in today's session. But if you're in that category, then please, feel free to contact me afterwards and we can chat. So I see all the places. So good to see Georgia in the house, Austin in the house. Um, so happy to have service-based class. Most seem very oh, great. It's Jody. Good to hear that. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's get into the presentation then. The objective of today really is, first of all, is four key things I want to cover is how do you know that the niche or the service you're trying to launch is actually profitable and people actually want what you're trying to sell? Because there's nothing worse than you creating a solution looking for a problem, right? Because now you're going to start telling people that they have a problem that they don't believe they have, and it's a harder sell. You ideally want to be creating something that people already want, and now you're just coming with the answer, and it's like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Like, this is exactly what I need. It's an easier conversation than you trying to manufacture demand. So it's how do you make sure that people actually want what you are potentially going to be offering? Secondly, how do you explain what you're offering in a way that people can resonate with what you're actually selling to them in a way that feels irresistible and it's clear for people to buy? There's a famous maxim, the confused mind does nothing. If you present people with something they don't understand, then it's actually easier and safer to just do nothing than to make a mistake or make a fool of themselves. They will just not do anything because they don't understand what you're talking about. So how do we make sure that clarity is there? Step two. Third, how do you go about actually attracting your dream clients? How do you find those clients that you want to work with without feeling like you're, I don't think that's a problem for my American colleagues, I have to say. It's more of a British problem, right? We tend to worry about being too salesy and being too like a used car salesman. We want to not be seen as that annoying person at dinner parties always trying to hustle for new business. But I feel like Americans, you guys tend to do it better than we do. So we actually should learn this more from you. It's how do you reduce the friction between like now you think you have a service, how do you find your first initial customer? So we'll talk about a few things you may want to consider. And how do you get paid for the service as well? So those are the four key things I would like to cover in today's session. Does that sound good? Can I get a one in the chat if it does sound good? Or anything else? Yay, thank you, Coach Sam. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate how engaged you guys are. So good. Thank you. Okay, so about me, as I said, I'm based out in London. I actually come from a long line of entrepreneurs myself. So both my parents are entrepreneurs. Before I started my business 10 years ago this year, I had a long career in investment banking. So I used to work for JP Barclays. And after doing my fancy MBA, I thought I really would like to go back to working for small businesses, but I could not actually work out how my fancy investment banking skills was useful to a small business. So it took a lot of iteration, but then I worked out that really what I do for big investment banks is I help them understand their processes front to back. So I map out as is processes, look for opportunities to refine any waste and cut out waste and make sure it's a lean, mean machine, and then work out how we can enter new markets with these new services. So really what I was doing for these big investment banks was market expansion work. So I took all of that skill set and I've tailored it to be more applicable to small and medium-sized businesses. So I'm really, really passionate about what I do because I think we small business owners are the heart of the economy. Like most people are employed by small businesses. So if we thrive, everybody thrives, right? And the communities usually is built around small businesses. So we really want to see them thrive and grow. I think what makes our business special is we're very data informed. So I'm not data driven. I don't think anybody should be data driven per se. It's more being able to do experiments, get the data, look at the data, understand what it means, and then you personally, as the business owner, with your wisdom, decide what you want to do, how you want to respond to the data. So you don't want to be driven by the data, you want to be informed by it. So a lot of the conversations there will be around like how you can get data to inform your growth and be more measured in how you do
Hey,
things so you're
great.
not chaotic and all over.
Sure. Did
I
you
think
get
that
it? Okay.
was that a somebody needs to go on mute?
Well, good.
Okay. Somebody needs to go on mute. Okay. And so that's a bit about me. So let's get started.
I think
When
so.
you
Let me
think about
let you know later today. The HVAC, well, the HVAC, tomorrow would be really better to have it picked up because I
Bill, do
think
you want to go mute?
Essick is off on Friday and it'd be good if he's there.
I think Bill is not muted. Bill, do you want to go on mute? We can hear you.
Let's wait and see because we've got the HVAC guys using
You
it
can't
to
even hear
for
me.
that
Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to get
air
Bill to go on
conditioning
mute.
today.
I don't have controls to make him
I
go
will.
mute. Sorry. I'm not that powerful here. Uh, can't seem to see it.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know but if it's
Oh
working,
no.
it's just sticking outside. So,
Bill, can you mute?
okay.
Can you guys hear me? I'll try and carry on with Bill in the background. Hopefully that's fine. Um, hopefully stop speaking. All right.
That would
So
make, well, that'd be
when
24
you
hours.
guys think of growth, is
So,
this the picture that comes to mind? Just like go faster on the
okay.
hamster wheel, like how quickly
Yeah,
can you go on
I
the
will check
hamster wheel, right? Because I
this.
think
And
for most people,
HVAC guy should be there now. So I would
oh
assume he'll have
no,
something, this morning.
Bill, please go. Oh no, this is not great. So for
Yeah.
most people,
Oh, yeah,
growth
we
seems quite
discussed that.
chaotic and stressful,
This
which
has
is
been
not
about this
ideal.
Monday,
Um,
I guess.
Bill,
No, Sunday. They finished up Sunday afternoon. Yeah. So,
I can't mute Bill. Sorry, guys. I wish I could. I would have done it, but I can't seem to mute him. Let me email him. I'll have to stop sharing my screen. And
okay. Chris, Chris,
I don't think he's.
I'm in the middle of a meeting, so I better get back to it. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, great. I think he's wrapping up anyway. Good. Bill, you back?
I am so. Oh, sorry. I didn't know I was
We
on.
could hear your conversation. We
Oh,
could understand.
I am
So can
sorry.
you
I
mute?
thought that the audio box was covered up. I thought I was on muted. So anyway, I apologize to everybody for that interruption.
No worries. No worries.
I'm
Okay.
going to
All right,
mute
then, guys.
myself.
Cool. Thank you, Bill. Okay, so as I was saying before, for most people, when they think of starting a business or growing a business, you just think, I just need to go faster on the hamster wheel, and things just so chaotic and it gets really stressful and panicky. But the funny thing is, right now, the cost of failure is the lowest it's ever been in our generation, in our life, in forever to start a business. And the reason for that is we have a lot of tech tools, and the internet makes it such that we can test ideas before we actually launch. But sometimes we're not taking advantage of these tools, and it's how can we do that better? That's part of what this conversation is going to be. So, what kind of frameworks can guide the process of launch so that we are more systematic on how we do things? Because back in the day, starting a business was so risky. You had to like mortgage your house, take big loans, and there was a big risk to starting a business. But it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Not with all the technology that we have right now. So part of what I'm going to be preaching today is let's try step away from the mindset of build it and they'll come. Let's try and test and commit to the idea as we see the market giving us feedback that it's what they want, then we then continue to build. So we'll test the waters slowly and only commit as long as we're getting the right feedback from the market. Um, so I think I talked about this in my rambling. So the old mindset looks like you having beautiful solutions looking for problems, and you're now like trying to sell things to people and force things down people's throats and they're like, oh, who is this annoying person? Leave me alone. Or the second situation with the old mindset is you have like so many solutions, everything just seems very chaotic. Like you have like the typical in the tech world, you'll have somebody that has the blockchain, Web3, SaaS, crypto enabled app that does 5 billion different things. And there's just so much happening. It's hard to clearly explain what it is this person does. And so, like I said before, the confused mind does nothing. If it's confusing, people would just rather not buy, not because they don't need it, but because they don't understand it. So it's how can we be clear on what we are offering? Or the third kind of mindset I see, especially amongst us small business owners, is perfectionism that holds us up. So we do all the busy work. So we're spending months working on websites, working on the logos, working on all this other stuff that isn't really affecting our revenues and our growth. So it's because we get caught up in the noise and not really doing what really matters. Or finally, the fourth mistake is spending lots and lots of money on ads. So because we're not really clear on the messaging and who we're trying to target, we end up pumping lots of money on Facebook ads or whatever ads are trending, TikTok ads. And then we're disappointed when we don't get the ROI, the return on investment on the ads that we have put out into the world. So can I just ask before we get started, what is your biggest challenge right now? So when you think of your go-to market, what would you say has been the biggest block? I'm on three low. Thank you, Denise, for the honesty. I appreciate that. You're not alone. It's so pervasive. Lots of people spending so much money. The other day, someone spent like 5 grand on a website and still hadn't started it. I was like, after 5 grand. So establishing credibility in a new state, great marketing. They're busy figuring out how to cut through the noise. Swiss, I mean, I expertise into the offer. Great. Okay, so I think we've got the right people in the room then. Great. Oh my goodness, that is so true. I'm going to touch on that one about knowledge consumption. I hear you on that one. I think even I suffer with that sometimes. Not a clue where to market. I have too many stalkers looking at my website, not converting to leads. I love it. Okay, guys, let's get started and hopefully we can solve some of these problems as we get into it. So, what are the 5 Ps? I think the 5 key things I want people to focus on when they're starting a business is just really simple. Only 5 ingredients in the pot. And I'm not looking for perfectionism in any of this five. I just think a good starting point on each of this five is enough. And the idea is start where you are and we keep iterating. And every time you go around the houses, it gets better and the idea gets sharper and so it grows. So it's a spiraling circle that spirals outward. So you're not looking for perfection on any of these pillars, guys. It's just good enough is good enough to get started. So good enough, we test, we get feedback, and then we'll improve as we go. That's the model. And these 5 things are number one, personality. First one is what about you is special? What is your unique selling point? What is your unfair advantage? What is your privilege? What do you have that many people don't easily have available to them? I'll give you an example. So the other day I was talking to a lady that was going to launch a Christian book, and she was talking about how she wanted to go do this fancy SEO, and you could tell from the way she was describing it that she didn't have a clue what she was talking about. Because she had listened to some influencer, somebody on some celebrity person that told her she had to go do this fancy exotic things that she didn't really understand. She was so confused and overwhelmed by it all. And as we got into it, we realized that she was a mom of four and had a big network of young moms that she could easily tap into, and she hadn't even accessed that already. And she had, I think she was a leader of one of the groups already. And I'm like, that is your unique advantage. Like, you may not be the most technical person, but what you already have available is your vast network of people that already know, like, and trust you. Have you already started with those people first? And too often we neglect to use the phrase of a leader that I like, Daniel Priestley, you can't see the mountain you're standing on. A lot of us already have so much privilege that we don't even know that we have because we get too familiar with our own greatness and we can't see what we have. So we end up chasing what some other person has. So the first step is to really take a step back and do a SWOT analysis. SWOT means strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So it's on a quadrant, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? So what about you is special? And how can we make sure that whatever it is that you're looking to start takes advantage of your strengths? I will give you some tools in the coming slides on exactly how you may go about doing that. Yeah. So that's the first one, your personality. Second is to really understand the client's pain points. So usually people start businesses for one of two reasons, either because they had the problems themselves, and so they believe that because they had it and they solved it for themselves, there might be other people in the world that have similar problems and they want to help those people solve the same problems. One. Or they start a business because they've seen somebody do something similar and they think, oh, I could do that better, or I could do that equally as well, but it doesn't exist in my area. So I'm going to try and launch it in a certain niche. So you tend to start a business either because for personal reasons, because you solved it for your own personal needs, or you've observed something empirically that you want to solve. So whatever the reason that's driving your starting the business, it's making sure you do the right research to make sure that your hypothesis, your the idea that you have is validated by the market really wants what you think they want before you go out and launch into the world. So we'll talk about how you may go about doing that. So it's really being clear on the pain point that the customer or the client would have. Third is, who would you like to solve this problem for? Usually there will be different types of people that have the same problems. If you think about the problem of getting a new job, right? For example, it could be getting a new job for a new graduate that has just graduated. So new graduates may have the same problem. It could be a mom that's returning back to work and hasn't worked for the last, say, 2, 3 years because she's been at home taking care of her kids and now is now looking to return back to work. It could be for a middle-aged person that's looking to switch careers. So there's different people that will be looking at, they may want to get back into work for various different reasons. So you may have different profiles with the same underlying need. So it's understanding which of these profiles you're ideally wanting to target and making sure your messaging aligns well with that demographic. So that's what we'll be covering in the persona stage, right? So it's really knowing which persona within the problem spectrum are you targeting, right, with your solution. Fourth is then coming up with a well-crafted offer. So I'll give you a formula on how to craft your offer statement and how to really go about explaining what you do, right, in a way that answers the key objections that people tend to have. And then finally, finding product market fit. So product market fit, if you haven't heard of that, is I think it's tech jargon. It's first started up in the tech world. Essentially, it means being able to find a repeatable way to sell your services to a defined set of people in a way that's repeatable. So clear product to a clear market in a way that's repeatable. I think you found product market fit when you can start to predict. You can say, hey, if I have a room filled with this type of people and I present in this type of way, then I know typically 50% will convert. With that kind of level of confidence, then you then know, okay, I'm going to then target my marketing to make sure that I have more of those type of people in a room. So it's how do you go about making sure you have that product market fit? Because then from that point, in theory, your marketing and your growth gets more predictable and you can start to assign numbers to your growth and it's no longer chaotic. How does that sound so far? Questions? What does it make? By the way, comments in the chat or questions in the Q&A box, because otherwise I would miss it, right? So if there's a question, put it in the Q&A box. If it's a comment, in the chat. I'm an author who wants to increase my author visits in schools. How can I get? I'll come to that, Bunny. And I'm on a mobile phone. Will you send resources mentioned by email along with recording? I will send the resources, yes, to Bill. I think Bill will send you the recording. So I think, Sandra, that's the answer to that question. Um, cool. Okay, sounds great and very clear. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the feedback. Great. All right, guys, let's get into it. Again, any comments, keep me know. So which of these 5 areas, question for you guys in the chat, which of these 5 areas most resonates? Which of these do you think you would like to do a deeper dive on? Does not, is not clear. Which of these can you?
But Yemi, we've got people raising
Four.
hands. Do you want to
I
take
can't see. I can see
audio
raised
questions?
hands. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see raised hands. Yeah, go for it. Who's got questions?
Let's see. Maybe you'll find the
Amy has a
Amy.
question. Amy, go for it. Amy and Bunny has a question. Quickly, go for it, guys. Do I unmute them or can they unmute
Oh,
themselves? I'm not sure how it
I just
works.
did. I unmuted, they've got to unmute themselves. I can allow it and they can do it. Looks like Bonnie has. So Bonnie, go ahead with your question if you like.
I actually have it in the questions box, but yeah, I'm the one that wrote
Oh,
that.
okay. Oh,
I'm an
yeah. I
author,
see. I see a question. I see a question,
and
but let me come back to that in a minute. Let me go through this 5 points, and then I think this is a great question. But let me go through the points, and then I'll answer the question with the knowledge. But thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Amy, any questions before we move on?
I think we can keep going.
All right, cool. Let's get going. Okay, then. So it seems like 3 and 5 are the hottest ones. So persona and product market fit. Great to know. Okay, let's go. Individuals talking is a time waster. Okay, great. Let's get into it. Personality. So first one is really being clear on your unique strengths and your unique advantages. What about you is special compared to everybody else? Like, what do you have that others don't have? What makes you unique and special? I think a great way to do it, a tool I really love for this exercise, is the Ikigai framework. I've put a number of tools on here to help you. So I think to work out your personality, this requires a lot of introspection and self-awareness and self-honesty. So really sitting down and being conscious of who you are and your natural strengths. Some of us, that's quite easy to do. For some of us, it's a bit more challenging. If you're in the latter category, then I would want to suggest some tools that might help the process. I'll put a list of tools on here. I'm going to talk you through how you might want to deploy the tools in your process. So the first one is the Ikigai tool. Let's get into that. The Ikigai, if you're not already familiar with it, is a Japanese framework. It means reason for being. I think it's a great tool for really understanding what your purpose is. Essentially, it is the overlap of 4 concentric circles. So it's an overlap of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. The idea is when you find something that ticks all 4 of those boxes, then you find something that is your ikigai. You find something that when you do, you enjoy doing it, you're great at doing it. People want to pay you for the services, they need it. So everybody wins, right? So it's a win-win-win-win all around. And so as a result, you get into flow and there's ease in what you're doing. So I think it's a great tool. The question then becomes, but what if you don't know what you love? What if you don't know what you're good at? What if you can't answer each of these 4 questions? How do I start? If that's where you are, then I've got more help. Do not worry, do not fret. I want to offer a few more tools. First one on what do you love? I think there's a great tool by this MIT professor called Career Anchors. It essentially categorizes people into 8 groups of their preferred working styles because we're all very unique in how we like to work. Some of us are quite technical, like we want to do deep tech, deep, we're just very, very technical type founders. So it's being conscious and being aware of like what your natural strengths are. So if, for example, you're quite technical, you may find, for example, you're great at, this is a bad example because I'm not doing product, but I'm going to use it anyway because it came to mind first. For example, you're a great baker, you make the fantastic breads, but you're not the best business person. So technically you're brilliant at doing the doing, but you may find that your natural working style is not really a managerial type style. So you have a deficit or a gap in that. So it's being aware of that, right? As I would like to do a business that allows me use more of my technical skills and not get caught up too much in administration. For some other people, they are great they want to manage, they don't really care about the doings, like they want to just set up the framework and hire people to do the doing, right? So it's what do you love to do? What is your preferred working style? So being aware of that. There is a test online. Again, I'll send this to Bill. I put the link on there, but I'll send it to Bill. That you could take. It's all free. And it can help you work out which of these are your natural career anchors, because again, it helps you to know what comes natural to you. Because the whole idea of this is you want to set up yourself to win. There's no point starting a business that you hate, right? So it's you want to set it up so you can win and be happy. Second thing is what you're good at, right? So it's what are you naturally good at? A tool I like to recommend for this is the Myers-Briggs tool. If you're not familiar with it, essentially there's 16 personality styles. It is rated across four parameters. First is whether you're introverted or extroverted. Second is whether you're more of a sensor, whether you're more how you like to process information. So are you more facts and figures, or are you more intuitive? Like, do you go with your gut, or do you have to see the data for you to make a decision? Second is, are you more of a thinker or a feeler? Like, do you go more with what your heart is saying, or are you more of a logic? Like, what's the logical thing to do? And the fourth and final thing is around how you make decisions. Are you more perceptive? Like, do you like to leave your options open and just kind of see how things go and how things play out? Or are you more of a J, judgmental? Are you more decisive? Like, you just want to narrow down and get to the answer quickly. So there's no right and wrong with any of these, but how you are, your responses to each of these factors forms your personality type, and each personality type has a strength and a weakness. Again, there's a free assessment you could take 16%. If you're not already taking it, you're not already familiar with what your Myers-Briggs is, I recommend doing that. So it's really doing that and being clear on like what your natural style is. This is not an excuse to not stretch, because sometimes I get people take this test and like, oh, well, I'm an introvert. It means I can never do extroverted things. No, that's not what it means. It means that naturally, your natural style is introversion. However, if you have to do extroverted things, because you know it's not your natural style, you may have to plan ahead and time box those activities in a way that you eat your frogs first, for example, or when you eat your frogs, you plan something fun to do afterwards. So it's being aware of what your natural strengths are, not so you can hide and not do what you need to do, but so you can plan accordingly and manage your energy accordingly as well. Yeah, so no running away. So that's that. So what you're good at. The third thing, on what you're not so good at, I think is also important, right? Is because I think whilst of course you want to know your strengths, when things are not going so well, how do you tend to react? What's your tendency? What are your behavior? What are your patterns? How do you tend to sabotage your own success? Again, just so you can catch yourself out, you can catch yourself out on your own nonsense, right? Before somebody else does. Like so when you're not doing well, how do you know so you can help yourself before things start to spiral downwards? Catch yourself early. So again, there's a tool to do this. There are 9 typical saboteur styles. For me, for example, mine tends to be controller. When I get super, super controlling, then I know something is off. Like, because it's not my style. I'm not really a micromanager, but if I get into micromanaging, it's like, oh, something has gone off. I need to take a step back and think about what changed. Like, why am I feeling the need to micromanage or to be hyper controlling people? And fix that problem because it's a sign that something has gone awry in the relationship. So again, being aware of that is important. And then finally, I think what the world needs, right, is I think a good way to assess this is the UN SDG goals. If you're not familiar with this, I think it's a fantastic tool. I think, of course, we're in business, first of all, to be profitable. Business is about making money, right? buy buy low, sell high, essentially is the basic fundamental principle of any business, right? Make a profit. But beyond making a profit, especially if you want to attract the younger generation as employees, we now live in a world where people care about passion, mission, and making sure you're doing social good to people. The more you can articulate your why and the broader good that your business does to community and the society at large, I think the better you will feel personally, because you will know that it's not selfish. I'm just trying to make myself rich. Like by me doing my business, here are the good things that happen in the community, number one. And then number two, it then also makes it easier to communicate your social impact or your mission to your future employees, to your suppliers, and so it just makes your business more ethical and well-rounded. So which of these naturally align and can you tap into for your business? And it also, by the way, it makes it easier to get grants as well, funding grants, because the UN, of course, is a force of nature right in our world. So they have a lot of influence and are working heavily with corporations to try and make sure most of these goals are achieved by 2023. So there's a lot of funding allocated to each of these buckets. So if you're aligned to any of them, you might find that in terms of getting partnerships, it might be easy to source because you can prove alignment. So hopefully that will make sense. If it doesn't, put it in the chat. I'll come back to it. And then finally, vocation, what can you be paid for? I used to say before to people like, oh, for vocation, what you can be paid for. So once you have the answer to the 3 variables, so what you're good at, what you love, and what the world needs, take those 3 together and try and look on job boards, look on it used to be a lot more complicated of an exercise before, but these days I think it's way more simple. What I would do is I'll literally go on chat GPT with those 3 variables, or maybe 4 with the saboteur, it will be 4. So what you're good at, what you're not so good at, what the world needs, and what you could be I forgot what the third one is, but you know what I mean, right? So I'll take the variables that I do have of myself. I'll go into ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, here is my Myers-Briggs. So the 4 dimensions. I'm an ENTJ, for example. I tend to sabotage by being hyper controlling. My working style, my preferred working style is lifestyle. I like a lifestyle type business. What was the other one I said? For myself. Oh, the mission I'm passionate about is no poverty. I'm interested in financial inclusion. Based on all of this, what kind of business would you suggest? Especially if you're struggling, by the way, if you're not sure like where to get started, how would you suggest I go about myself? I'll go to ChatGPT for that. I'll ask ChatGPT to suggest how I could put all of that together in a way that is profitable and I can be profitable out of it. Hopefully that makes sense. Yep. Keep me out of data entry. I love it, Christiana. Well, yeah, that's it. By the way, some of the suggestions will be nonsensical, but I think it's a starting point, right? It's a thought partner. It just gives you ideas that you can then start to investigate further. Yeah. And then one tool I wanted to share, this is more of a proprietary tool that we developed over time by working with lots and lots of clients. It's what we call the Founders Trinity, or the 3 Cs. Essentially, but over time, I've worked with like lots of different small business owners. And I started to find that there was 3 key skill sets that you really do need, ideally, to be successful as a business owner. The first skill set is visionary, right? So we need somebody that is more like the founder, the founder person, the founder, the visionary person, that the idea, that has this idealistic what they want to create in the world. The visionary hat, the founder hat. The second hat that we need is somebody that had commercial awareness. So think about it as a CEO hat, someone that could take that big vision and then ground it in reality. So take that vision and create a strategy, a 5-year plan of how you're going to take that vision and create a product that you can sell and market to the world, right? So commercial awareness type person, CEO hat. And the final hat is more someone that's going to do the doing. So it's a now you have the vision, you've got the strategy, somebody actually needs to actually deliver, the operational person, and execute on the strategy. These are the 3 key hats, or 3 key things that we need to do to be successful, to have any kind of business. And this, by the way, is why business ownership can be quite challenging, right? Because it's quite rare to find someone that has all three skill sets. And at the very beginning, if you're starting, you have to, usually it's one person trying to be all 3 things in somewhat equal measure, or when necessary. So you're switching between all 3. And you find that when you are lacking in any of these 3, you may come across quite lopsided. If, for example, you are great at the vision and great at commercial awareness, but not so good at getting stuff done, you might start coming across as quite superficial, because you will constantly be talking about big grand ideas, like, oh yeah, the product, big grand ideas for years and months, and we don't actually see any products comes out. And after a while, it's like, why am I not seeing anything coming out? Or if you're great at the vision and great at doing stuff, but you don't really understand how business works, and the commercial and the sales and marketing isn't quite working well, you again might come across maybe the kind of those business owners tend to be the ones that would have all these fancy products or fancy services, and don't have any customers. So they're very idealistic, very utopian in how they see things. They kind of believe that if I build it, somehow magically it's just gonna, sell itself, right? It will just sell itself. Or you have some business owners that might be great at the commercial awareness side of things. They're good sales and marketing people, fantastic. They're also good at getting stuff done. They have the product they can sell. But because they're not clear on their vision, the vision changes every day. So depending on what is hot and what is shiny and which mentor and coach they're listening to that particular week or month, the product changes, right? So one day it's SaaS, the next day it's Web3, it's something else, but they're always like, it just has this kind of very scattered hostelry energy to it. This is not a name and shame. It's just more a self-awareness tool. Just again, because like I say, we are all very some of these skills will come naturally to us than others. So it's knowing which one comes naturally, and the ones that doesn't come naturally, because you're aware it doesn't, making sure you plan ahead of time. So you block, say, mornings to get your marketing done, because that's not your natural it's not your natural play. Because otherwise, what would happen would be you just do more and more of the things you love and ignore the things you don't like to do, and just hope that it magically goes away. Or even worse, when you come to hiring, you will hire people that are like you, because hey, as human beings, we like people like ourselves. So we tend to hire more people like ourselves, and we ignore the things that we're not so good at. And then you start to have a business that's lopsided. So again, being aware of what your natural strengths are, it's a building block for starting any kind of business venture. Hopefully that all makes sense. So the exercise out of all of this is to sit down and go through all of these various tools I've given to you. I'll send you the links, go through them, and based on that, make a list or a table, your SWOT analysis on yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses, opportunities, threats? What is special about you? What do you have that we could take advantage of in your go-to-market strategy that somebody else might not readily have? For example, you have a big network of people, you're brilliant technically, you're a great writer, you're a great public speaker, I don't know, whatever it is. What do you have that is not accessible to everybody else? Yeah, so being aware of that. And by the way, if you do this exercise correctly, it would also help you identify your own personal values. One of the biggest conversation as you start to grow your business will be all the culture, like making sure you have a great culture and all that kind of culture conversation. The building block for culture is the founder's values. It is your own values that would then be the building block for your organization's culture going forward. It is your own values that hopefully would then inform the kind of people you want to work with as clients, who you want to hire, who you want to have as suppliers. So this exercise might feel very like, oh my God, I came here to make money. I didn't come here to learn about myself. Thank you very much. Can we talk about money? But believe it or not, this is actually fundamental, I think, to any kind of strategy conversation. Being clear on your values as a business owner is the building block for strategy going forward. Yeah. So please, I think it's important. All right. So just to share on my own values for my business, I just put as an example. By the way, this is kind of thing I think ChatGPT can help you with. By me putting all this stuff in and also brainstorming with ChatGPT, I kind of came up with this. And I happen to go with something that rhymes and feels good for my business. It's called growth. So our values is the growth is our values. The first one is growth. So we're committed to growth. So having a growth mindset is super important to me. I only want to work with people that have a growth mindset, hire people that have a growth mindset. No, it's my point about like, I don't want to hear I'm introverted, I don't do extroverted things. Like, no, we can grow, we can expand, we can stretch, we can learn, we can grow, right? So that's important to me. Second is results, right? So it's important that we're delivering measurable results. We're not just talking without seeing any products. So it's like, what is the results and can we measure what we've done? Third is ownership, is I don't want to be anybody's crack habit. It's like, so the idea is to train people and help customers get to a point where they are now able to own and drive you don't want to create false dependencies unnecessarily for clients. Fourth is wisdom. So it's making sure, again, like we're joining experiences from me, faith, life, and applying and making sound and wise decisions to guide our clients correctly. And fifth, service. So these five guide the way we do business within the Change Hive. Whatever is the case for yours, please, create it for yourselves, right? Like I say, it's fundamental to then your hiring, your growth, who you choose to work with, the clients that are your ideal clients. You want to measure them against your values. Second point, that was the first P done. So first P done. Second P, pain point. So this P is about identifying the problem. So being clear on the problem you're here to solve or you're looking to solve with your business. And ideally, kind of similar to what we saw with the Ikigai, you want to find a problem that you love, so you're good at, and also the world wants to pay for, right? So there has to be, you have to enjoy it, and people would ideally want to pay for it as well. One without the other isn't quite a business. If you're good at something, nobody wants to pay for it, and it's a hobby. If people want to pay for it, but you don't particularly like it or enjoy it, then it becomes a job, and it's like, why? That's how burnouts then happen. So you want to find a sweet spot of both. Here is a process that I tend to like to guide people through on how I may go about making sure like the problem you're solving is the right problem. I touched on it at the beginning of this presentation. The first is, first of all, like, identify a problem that you think you may want to solve, right? So it's either by the way, I put this presentation together because I wasn't sure where people are at in their journey. Some people haven't started at all and are looking to start a business. So I'm catering for that. Some have started but would like to grow more. So again, so if you already have an idea, then please ignore the ones that don't apply. Please forgive me because I wasn't sure who would be on the call. So if it's too broad, that's the reason why I just didn't know. I want to try and cater for as many people as possible. First is to identify a problem. So like I say, it would either come from your personal experience or come from research or observation, right? So you've either seen something in your travels or you went to a different state or something, or a friend said something and like, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that, right? So identify a problem. Second is, once you think you've found a problem, you want to interview potential clients for this problem. So typically people tend to skip this step. People just tend to would think, oh, I've got a problem. I've got an idea, and then they go straight to building a website, building a logo, and all that kind of exciting stuff. But they skip the step of checking and trying to go about finding potentially who might also have the same problem. So this step 2 is important, and you may want to do it by either, if for example, it's professionals that might have the problem, you want to go on LinkedIn and do a search on LinkedIn and find people that potentially have that problem. I will just add them as contacts. If you want, you could put an intro message to say, hi, Mr. X, I'm doing some research on career development or interview skills for fresh graduates. I wondered if you could spare 10 minutes to get on a call with me to answer a few questions on this topic, something like that, right? So I would approach them as a researcher, somebody that wants to ask a question, wants to ask their advice, ask for opinion. There's a maxim, I think I'm going to come to it in future slides, of If you ask for advice, you get money. If you ask for money, you get advice. So the way you start is you ask for advice. You would approach them and just go ask people that you think might be potential beneficiaries of a solution to this problem. I would reach out to them either via LinkedIn, or another good way to find potential people will be on online forums. So Quora, Reddit. I'll go on this Facebook group. So again, if you're looking for, like, say, people that are struggling with interviews, are there Facebook groups that already have these people? I'll go make sure I'm adding myself to those groups and then start networking within those groups, finding a few people and approaching them, say, hey, I've got a few questions on this topic. Would you be open to jumping on a call with me to give me some more information? Of course, not all of them will respond, but this is why you want to initially contact, I want to say initially, about 50 people, and 80-20. So of the 50, probably, I don't know, 5 come back to you. Come back. That's one. Is that 1 in 20? I forget. 80-20. Yeah, about, so 10. Of the 50 people, probably about 10. So prior to 80-20 principle will come back to you. And then those 10, you can then get on a call with them and just really ask them questions. And when you get on the call to ask the questions about, so it's like, hey, I'll come to the questions in a minute. I think I'm going ahead of myself, but the point is, interview them. I'll tell you in the next slide the kind of questions you may want to ask. The third is, once you've done the interviews, you may start to find that there are subgroups within the potential client group. So to my first example, if you talk about people that are looking for jobs or that are struggling with interview skills, it might include fresh graduates, it might include moms returning to work, it might include um, mid management career switches, people that want to switch careers at mid management level. So you may find that there are natural groupings of potential clients. So you just naturally see it in your interview. So you want to group them into the segments that you're seeing. And then once you've done that, the fourth thing you may want to do is then to really work out, like, how big is this market? Like, is this problem really big enough? And I think a quick way, some of the points I put here may be a bit too technical if you're a small business owner. This tends to apply more for like tech businesses or businesses that want to go raise funds or raise investments from investors. Investors will want to know how big is the market, like how quickly can you scale and how quickly can they get their money back. But if you're not really going down that path, maybe that this knowing your TAM, your SAM, and your SUM is not that vital. But I think what is vital is you want to know that when you go out to market to try and find potential clients that might need your services, if you're struggling to find Facebook groups with people that have the problem, or you can't even find people to respond to you as a researcher, for me, that's already a red flag, because you're not asking them for any money. If nobody's willing to even like engage with you at that level, or you can't find any groups, then it might be that you're trying to solve a problem that maybe isn't really a problem, or um, it's not painful enough, or it's just not the right problem to solve. So I think that is, first of all, the first hurdle. Can you find people that are willing to respond to you as a researcher, right? And then finally is, then once you're doing some macro analysis, so before you start in the business, I think it's always wise to just check in the macro environment level. So looking at the politics, your geopolitical, economics, taxes, is there anything that might change in our wider world that may impact this your new business venture? So for example, is there going to be a new tax policy that would mean that what you're trying to launch as a product is not going to be relevant in the next 2 months or 3 months? So you want to make sure whatever you're launching is not tone deaf to what is currently happening in the world. So again, I would make sure you check that. So for the points I mentioned, I'm going to suggest a few frameworks you may want to consider. Where's my slide not working? So in the macro environment or macro analysis, the popular framework for this is PESTLE. So it's looking at your political landscape, economic landscape, social landscape, technology, legal, and then environmental. So is there anything in those places that might change your business and make it redundant in the near future? And then also looking at the industry at large, like who are the current players in the industry? What's the rivalry? Who are the suppliers? Who are the buyers? What is the current dynamic? Is it quite a closed, is it quite a tight, closed, neat industry that's going to be so hard to break into? In which case, as a new player, maybe trying to go direct head on is not a good idea. Maybe you may want to partner with somebody instead. So these are the kind of things that you want to consider as part of you researching the problem. So it might be a valid problem, like there is a pain point, but you getting in as a new player is nearly impossible because the powers that be already in the marketplace make it super, super difficult, in which case you have to be more creative with how you get into the market. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, put in the questions and I would answer it in the Q&A section. All right. So the research method I said, right? I just want to touch on it a bit more. I think I already explained it in the previous slide. I would start off by approaching potential clients as a researcher. My point, I'll literally say, hey, I'm doing some research on XYZ topic. I saw that it's something you might be interested in. Would you be open to getting on a call with me for 5 minutes just to talk a bit about this? To make this effective, if I was doing this, I would make sure that whatever social media profile or email that I'm sending, I'll make sure I am positioning myself in a way that looks the part. So if, for example, you want to go into certain industry, I'll clean up my LinkedIn to look the part, or at least not have anything that contradicts what I'm messaging people, right? So that they're more likely to respond to me. Number one, or number two, if you're going to do it on, say, a Facebook group or Quora or Reddit, I would spend the first, I don't know, couple of days or a week or so building my profile within the group. So I'd either start responding to questions so you can have a badge. So on Facebook groups, for example, if you're very active in the group, you get a badge of like top responder or top, so you want to build some kind of credibility within the ecosystem so that when you message people, they're like, oh yeah, that's the guy or the girl that's super helpful. And then they're likely going to respond to what you have to say, right? So in an ideal world, I want to try and aim for, 30 to 50 responses because statistically speaking, anything less than 30 responses is not statistically significant enough to make a decision. So in an ideal world, you want at least 30 responses because I think any less, it's not really significant, but definitely not 2 people or 3 people, right? So you want to at least get as close to 30 as possible. I think gives you a good idea of whether or not you are doing the right thing. Yeah. Um, Kind of questions we want to ask is, what is your frustration with interviewing, right? What have you tried that hasn't worked for you? Because you want them to tell you who your potential competitors might be in the marketplace. What does success look like for you? So what's your ideal outcome? Again, you want to listen for the language and how they describe the problem to you, because language matters a lot, as you would see when I talk about designing the product and coming up with a clear offer. So it's, what does success look like to you? So it could be like, oh, I would really like to get a 6-figure job or getting a job with a great pension. What are the typical words or pain points that they come up with when they describe what they want? How much have they spent so far on the problem? Again, that gives you an idea of how much you could potentially price and how you could price yourself in the market. Because if like alternatives are costing a certain price point, then that tells you what the market tolerance is for solutions. So those kind of questions I think are things to consider as you do your initial interviewing, right? The third, we kind of slightly covered, right? So creating your ideal customer persona is your third P. With this, as I mentioned before, when you're doing your interviewing, you might find that because initially we casting the net wide and we just said, who in the world potentially has this problem? So we're talking to everybody that we think might have the problem. But as you start talking to people, you would start to see nuance and groupings of people, right? So ideally, you want to group them. And then for each of the groups you've identified, you want to run them across 4 criteria. First of all, can they pay for your service? Like, is this customer profiles? If I'm targeting graduates, for example, can they afford to pay for my services? Right? If they can't, which is probably going to be the case with most graduates, is there a third party that I can get a grant from that could pay on their behalf? So, for example, can I get the government to sponsor or something, to pay for me so that I can serve them? But if they can't pay, then you have a problem. And not just pay once, but ideally be a recurring customer as well. So is it going to be, can they pay once and can I sell them something on a recurring basis so that I'm not having to get a new customer every time, right? So can they pay? Secondly, do they have a clear need for your problem? And that's part of why we ask the questions that we ask, right? So what have you tried so far? If, for example, you ask them, what have you tried? And they say, oh, I haven't tried anything, then are they really serious? The answer is no. It's kind of like asking me, would you like to learn French? I'm like, yes, I want to learn French. What are you doing about it? Nothing. I'm not a serious person, right? So you trying to sell me a French solution, you might have a long sales process with me because you have to warm me up. I'm not really ready. I want it, but I'm not doing anything about it. So Do they have a clear need? And I think a quick way to test whether they have a need is they're actively trying to solve it in some way, shape, or form, right? Third criteria you want to test is this a growing market? Is that demographic you're trying to solve for? Is it a growing need, for example? Are they, is it, for example, is it shrinking? Is the need going to continuously keep shrinking year over year, or is it going to continuously keep? It's kind of like now trying to launch a face mask business. The need for face mask is fairly stable. Like at the height of the pandemic, okay, yeah, maybe it was a good idea to launch, special face masks, but now like who's really buying face masks, right? So is the need, because the only guys I'll probably be buying will be like your medics and probably people in Asia, because they typically wear lots of face masks in Asia. So is that market growing, or is it a shrinking market or a stable market? Is it really worth your time pursuing? Fourth, does that market or that demographic find you credible? I think this is important because too often I speak to entrepreneurs, I think mostly younger entrepreneurs, that again, I've been listening to many motivation, I don't know, different coaches that tell them, oh, you need to target people that have money, which is true. You don't want to sell to someone that can pay for your services. And they take that to mean I have to sell to 8-figure entrepreneurs. So they get on the phone with me and they go, oh, I'm looking to target 8-figure entrepreneurs. I'm like, okay, that's great, fantastic. So are you an 8-figure entrepreneur yourself? No, okay, no problem. Do you have a network of 8-figure entrepreneurs? No, I don't. Have you worked for an 8-figure entrepreneur before? No, I haven't. It's like, so why do you think an 8-figure entrepreneur would find you credible and want to give you their business? Right? It becomes a harder sell, right? It's because you're not credible in their eyes. People like themselves. So the more you can prove and show to them that you have either walked a similar path, you are that person, it becomes hard. They would not trust you, and it's a harder way to sell without this four things. So in summary, for your persona, the way you come to your persona is you first identify the problem, you interview so many people, as many as you can find. You group the people you've identified into like key buckets. For each of the buckets you've grouped them into, you want to compare them across these four criteria. Can they pay? Do they really need what you're offering? Is it a growing market? And also, do they find you credible? Because you like them. Also, part of it is, do you like the people and do they like you back? Do they find you credible? Because it could be that you find a niche that is like super, super profitable, but you don't really enjoy working with those kind of people. Like it just drains your energy. And maybe that's not your people or your niche that you may want to target, right? So these four things I think is worth thinking about, right? So that's like that. Things to just bear in mind again for my perfectionists. I'm in the same boat, don't worry. There's no perfect niche, right? This is not a perfect, you'll find this perfect magical niche that no one has found. It's just again getting to as close as perfect and being methodical about how we're doing things. And even if you can't find if one of these criteria, for example, is not a yes, and you still choose to go for it, then at least bear it in mind and have it as a risk against your business. Like, okay, so it's not a great market, but I'm going to go for it anyway because, yeah, I know it's not, but I think I can manage the risk. Be aware of the risk, and do it consciously so that you can basically be watchful and mindful as you grow your business in the future. I think initially you want to target one ICP. So if there's probably going to be many people, like I said, that have the same problem. You find that if your language is not specific enough in the beginning, and we'll come to that in the next P. If it's not specific enough, then it's hard to really do marketing because you're talking to too many people at the same time, so nobody really gets the message clearly. So target one niche specifically so they understand it, and then over time the others will come. I think initially you want to stick to initially, I think at least you want to get your first 30 clients. So when you choose your ICP, you want to work with at least 30. Again, like I said before, 30 is your benchmark for statistically significant, right? I think anything less than 30 is not enough to really make a proper decision on. So you want to work with the first 30. If after the first 30 is still not, it's not a good fit, it's not working for you, then maybe at that point you want to switch to a different demographic or different ICP profile, right? Hopefully that all makes sense for ICP. If it doesn't, please put your questions in the chat and we'll come to it in the Q&A section of this. And then we come up to the fourth P. Fourth P is product. So crafting a compelling offer. So this is being able to articulate what your solution is to the market in a way that they understand it and they can resonate with what you're offering them. A great way I want to propose that you do that is with this framework that was designed by somebody called Alex Hormozi. In the chat, who has heard about Alex Hormozi? I think he became quite popular in recent years, and he's actually pretty good. His content is great. So if you've come across his work, then this might all be very familiar. He's got a book called $1 Million Offers, and this framework comes from that book. Essentially, a great offer is made of 4 key components. These 4 components are your typical objections that people have when they come to buying a service or doing business with you. The typical objection people have is, what's in it for me? Like, how is it? How do I know it's, what is it? Like, what's in it for me? Second is, how do I know it's going to work for me? Like, how do I know it's going to work? How do I know I'm going to be successful by working with you? Third is, how long would I have to wait before I see any kind of meaningful result? And then fourth is, how much work would I have to put in to get the results that you're offering me, right? So these tend to be the 4 things that people just worry about, are concerned about before they buy things. So quicker you can get to these answers, quicker you can cut out the objections, and you can get into the heart of closing your sale and doing business together. So an example of how this might look like, right, is I'm going to try and I think I've covered this already. I think one thing just mentioned quickly on this slide is I think too often as entrepreneurs, because again, you get so close to what we're offering, we get so focused on talking about features of our services. So a career coach, for example, will say, I do a 6-week career coaching program. It's like, I don't really care about 6-week career, like nobody cares about that. But if, for example, to the right audience, you told them, get a 6-figure FANG PM role in 6 weeks, in 6 interviews or less, or your money back, that is quite a compelling offer to the right audience. And only the right audience would understand what that means. Because FANG, for those who don't know what FANG means, FANG is the top tech companies. That was the jargon that was used. It stands for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. These were the top tech companies, at times, and PM, product manager role. So get a 6-figure product manager role in a top tech company, essentially, is what I'm saying here. In 6 weeks, in 6 interviews or less, or your money back. So with this example, I've told them what the outcome is going to be. They'll get a 6-figure job, right? And by the way, you know the exact wording to use with the interviews you did. And that's why I said when you do the interviews with people and you ask them questions on whether or not they can relate or what the problems or their frustration is with the problem you're trying to solve, you want to listen to the language they use. If the common theme is, oh, I really want to get a 6-figure role, a 6-figure tech role, but I'm struggling with the interviews, or there's too many interviews, or I don't really know how to negotiate, or whatever it is, right? So you want to incorporate the typical language and the pain points in your offer, ideally, right? How long is going to take them to do it? So 6 weeks. How much effort they'll have to expend, 6 interviews or less, and what's the guarantee that it's going to work for them. In this case, I'm offering money back. It doesn't always have to be money back. I'll show you some examples of other things you can offer as proof of credibility. It's safe to work with you in a minute. So that's how I'll go about. So example again, I suppose using similar to the workshop that we're running right now is get paid clients. How long would I have to wait? In 30 days or less? And what's the pain or the sacrifice I'll have to, without using any complicated ads or technical websites or fancy systems? And how do I know it's going to work for you? It's worked for over 40 people. Check out the reviews on Google, right? For example, could be an offer you want to offer people. So the exercise after this step, you're going to do this yourself, is to create something similar for your business. So what are they going to get? How much time will they have to spend? What is the pain point that they're trying to avoid? And what's the guarantee it's going to work for them? The quickest one to do is money back, right? Others you may want to consider are things like accreditation from an accredited, I don't know, fancy, whatever. If you have any fancy accreditations that shows credibility, that's one. If you've got fancy social media, like 10K followers or whatever, 100K followers. If you've spoken on like famous stages, like TEDx speaker, I don't know, anything, you may want to incorporate that into your, especially also if it's relevant to the offer as well, right? Because there's no point talking about stuff that's not relevant to the people that you're trying. This is again to my point about the ICP, your ideal customer must find you credible. So you want to talk about things that they would find credible. If they don't find those things credible, then it doesn't matter. If anything, you put in stuff that they don't find credible is more noise, and it shows them that you're not in the inner circle. You don't really know what you're talking about, because like, why are you talking about stuff that we don't care about? any awards that you've won, any affiliations you have. So if you've got like famous, you see people do this on social media, famous mentors or I worked with, or people that have worked with, I don't know, famous people, like uh, Tony Robbins coached or Tony, whatever, who you want to name drop or Tony Robbins approved or whoever you want to call that is a strong enough name and whose credibility you can borrow for your business as proof. Any advices you have on, by the way, this is why with tech businesses, you want to get like fancy, you see Shark Tank, for example, you have some good people go on there and pitch businesses, not because they want the money, but because they want the brand name of the shark to come on board, because then that opens up doors and gives credibility to the business. Press coverage, or if you publish any kind of content in a journal or a book, might be a way to build credibility. So these are some ways you may want to consider for establishing credibility if you think that might be a gap. But a quick low-hanging one, I think, is money back. And doesn't have to be 100% money back. It could be a thing of if after the first 1 hour of working together you don't find value, then I'll give you your money back. But that money back expires after the first hour or something like that, right? It doesn't have to be like a money back indefinitely. So you can measure, you can do it in a way that works also for you so that you are not exploited in the process. Final one to cover is product market fit. So how do you know that you have a validated offer? So what you're offering the market wants it, and it's now time to scale and systemize and build fancy systems so you can start to operationalize what you're doing and make it less manual. Product market fit is really three things in very simple ways, right? Is you're solving a problem that people are willing to pay for. So it's have a clear problem, which you talked about. So really being clear on the pain point. Second is the solution is well explained. So people understand the solution when you talk about it. They're like, oh, they get it. There's no confusion. What do you mean? Like they don't get it. So the solution is well articulated and understood by the right audience. And then the third thing is you have a repeatable way of finding these people, right? So we talked about some ways you may go about doing this. So whether it's LinkedIn or Quora or Reddit, ideally initially organically, or even if it's a conferences, because this is why you do the SWOT analysis, right? So by doing the SWOT analysis, if, for example, you're already a super great speaker and you enjoy speaking, then, oh, conferences. So can I go to certain conferences and speak at this as a panelist or as a keynote speaker as a way to present myself in front of my ideal ICP, right? So these are the three things you want to have in place for you to find product market fit. So you have a clear problem, clear product, repeatable way of finding the customers. When I prepare businesses for sale, I say ideally I want to have like at least 3 ways of generating leads, 2 organic, 1 paid at the very least, right? So the 2 organic could be, I don't know, speaking at conferences and also posting organic content on LinkedIn or cold DMing people, I'm not sure. Paid could be running LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads, whatever. But initially, starting point as a startup business, I think just focus on one channel. So one lead generation channel, I think is plenty as a starting point. So I would either do Facebook groups, as I mentioned. So I'll go on Facebook groups and add myself to as many as possible and clean up my Facebook profile, make sure my Facebook profile looks aligned to what I'm trying to sell to people and start connecting with my ideal customer profile and asking them to jump on calls with me, right? So initially, just asking questions and getting them to validate it. Once I have the product defined, then I'll then go back to the guys to say, hey, that conversation we had 2 weeks ago, I now have something you might be interested in. Would you like to hear more about it? Oh, yes, of course, I'd like to hear more about it. And then you might want to offer them something, which I'm going to do now. Yeah. So hopefully that's all clear and makes sense. I don't want to answer questions now because I'm worried I'll break my flow and some guys need to jump off and I don't want to keep anybody. But so to this product market fit step, what you will go about doing is what I started talking about, right? Is if you remember, we've interviewed lots and lots of people, asked them questions. Based on their questions, we've now designed a product that has the 4 criteria, clear outcome, what's in it for them, how long it'll take, and all that good stuff is answered. We're now going to go back to those people we interviewed and say, hey guys, thank you for your time the other day. We now have something you could be interested in. Would you be interested in working with us in exchange for a testimonial, in exchange for or at a reduced cost, whatever the case might be, right? Just to get your first initial ones and people through the door and that proof of concept that it's working and you're getting paid customers. When you get this first paid ones, you want to over deliver, like go over and above. and make sure that they're super happy. Once they're happy, you want to get the feedback. So get the feedback, documented reviews. Ideally, I want to get reviews, video reviews, and also written reviews on whatever platform makes sense for your industry. So for some industries, it makes sense to get it on Google. For others, it makes sense to get it on Trustpilot. If you're really good with your clients, you can ask them for both. Why not? If they like you and they're willing to do it, then you can try your luck and ask for it. The worst you get is no. But if you ask for too much, you get nothing. So I'll ask for one first, get that one, and then maybe ask for a second one afterwards. And then finally ask them for referrals. So the way I like to think about it is the 3R framework. So at the end of every conversation as a service provider, you wrap up every conversation with 3Rs. First is, thank you so much for your time. First R, recommendation. So I recommend you do blah, 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 blah. Second point is ask for a review. So so how did you find that session? Are you happy with any feedback on that? It's like, oh yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. That I was like, great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Would you be open to leave a review for us? Because it will help other clients like yourself find us. Yes, I'll be happy to leave you a review. Done. Third R is referrals. Who else do you know that could benefit from these services? Like, so the point is at the end of every conversation with your potential customers, when you're offering them your solution, you want to wrap it up with 3Rs. So when you do your discovery calls or whatever calls you do, 3Rs, so you can make sure they're happy, you get their reviews, which shortens your sales cycle for future sales. And then finally, you get reviews, referrals, because then it means that each client is birthing the next client and it starts to, the flywheel starts to build over time, right? So that it becomes another source of leads. So you're getting leads from Facebook groups, for example. Now you're getting leads from referrals. So you now have two sources of leads. Yeah. And eventually you then start to find that your sales process will get shorter because now your leads are now going on Google or whatever the platform is and looking you up and saying, oh, she's got great reviews. And it becomes easier to sell over time. So let's put it all together quickly as we wrap up. So if I was going to do this in 30 days, first week is going to be clarifying yourself. So what are your strengths, your weaknesses, doing a SWOT on yourself, also doing the research on the pain points and really defining your ICP. So first week is very research heavy, research on yourself, research on the problem, research on the market to decide who you want to potentially work with. Second week is more creative. So based on all this information about yourself, your market and the problem, creating an offer and maybe creating some content. For the content, you can use ChatGPT to give you some ideas. Like I say, you put what you're looking to do, put in ChatGPT. But I don't even think it doesn't have to be that complicated. I would keep it really simple. I would go on Facebook groups and literally engage in the groups because they're already asking questions anyway. So I'll respond to the questions that people are asking that will be related to my business to build credibility within the Facebook groups that I would then want to approach people on for it. And by the way, if you do it this way, you're not going to be breaking any Facebook group owners' policies because if anything, you're doing it because you're keeping their group active, right? So you are adding value to the group. And then because you've given somebody value, they don't want to become friends with you. And then over time they say, hey, would you want to get on a call with me? I've got a few questions to ask you, right? So it's in a way that is mutually beneficial. You're not being sharky and stealing people's stuff, right? So ideally you want to also contribute to the ecosystem that is feeding your business. Third week then becomes more about reaching out to potential clients. So the guys you've helped in the Facebook groups or Quora groups or Reddit groups, reaching out to say, hey, do you want to jump on a call with me to just help me understand, better? And then fourth week is then you then have a few people that you've potentially identified that could be a good fit for your business, delivering good service to them, asking them for reviews, asking them for referrals, and then repeating that process. And over time, you start to have like a good repeat business. I think once you've stabilized once you're clear on what the product is, what the solution is, and the kind of people you like to work with, at that point, you can then start to run ads, right? Because you can now find, okay, so what exactly needs to go on the ad? What's the headline? What's the picture that would resonate with my ideal customer profile? Which platform should I place the ad on? Who should the ad be targeted at? And by the way, if you have a good enough customer list, you can set up the ad to have a lookalike of your existing customers, right? So if you have your customers' email addresses, you can say only place this ad in front of people that are similar to customers that you already have and that you like, right? So this is why I think it's good to do it organically first, because then it makes even your ads better because you can do lookalike audiences for your ads. And for the person that asked the question about, I have people coming to my website, but they don't convert. Again, these are kind of things you want to look at, right? Is that because if they're coming on your website, then that means already your upfront, your top of funnel marketing is great, but they're not converting. Something on the website is not resonating. Either your messaging is not clear. It's like, is the headline clear on exactly what you're doing? Is there something they can download? Because also you also need to realize that there's sometimes it takes a there's a people need to have 7 touch points with you usually before they're ready to buy, or 7 hours of content that they consume with you before they're willing to buy, especially if you're selling a high ticket item. So not right. If you haven't started already, please don't do this. I almost don't want to get into this because I'm like, I don't want people that are perfectionists like me to get into, oh, I'm not ready. I'm going to go do all this 10,000 things before I can start. If you have started and you're finding that you're not converting on the website, it's usually because the call to action is not clear, or there's a big jump between me finding you for the first time and me doing business with you, because I want to consume small things first. I want to either come on a webinar first. I want to download a lead magnet first from you. I want to do something that is not overly committal with you to prove to myself that it's safe. And then when I'm ready over time, I will then convert. So allowing people, building a good product ecosystem becomes part of that solution. But that is a stage 2 or level 2 problem. And I think if we're going to have a full-up webinar. I'll talk about that in my level 2 webinar for this, but I just thought about that to answer that. So to wrap this up, I think we've covered it. So the go-to-market plan is really being clear on your own personal SWOT. So that's your origin, your mission, your vision. So having that clearly defined so you have credibility with yourself and also with your potential target market. Updating your social media to match who you're potentially going to be targeting. Finding the online communities that has your target market, engaging within those communities so you can build credibility with them, and you can get known in that circle. You may want to then do some warm outreach. So you might do it by just cold email or cold DMs, or if you want to get even personal, you could do a Loom video. So Loom is a tool where you can record yourself on a screen, so you can just it's a plugin if you're not familiar with it. I think it's really cool because you can share your screen as well and also get on video and be like, hi. So it feels more personalized and a warmer intro. So you may find that you get better responses with a Loom video. You might want to also then think about posting content, but honestly, I would not even, but if you're doing it with Facebook groups, I don't think you have to do content per se. You just have to respond to people's questions. And I think that's enough. By responding to all those questions, those answers could then become content on your own feed, perhaps. I don't know, but don't overwhelm yourself. Pace yourself, whatever makes sense for your business. And then over time, you may find that there are third-party people you could partner with to target because if, for example, on the Facebook groups, another approach might just be you go to the Facebook group owner and say, hey, Facebook group owner, here's what I'm doing. I've been really active in the group for the last week. Would you be open to running a webinar with me, collaborating with me to run a webinar so we could do something to engage the group? Some owners say, oh, yes, absolutely. Let's do it together and let's collaborate on it, right? But they would only really be willing to do it if if you have credibility already that they can see from other things you've done historically, or you've added value to the group, right? So they might then be willing to partner with you to do a webinar, for example, or something, or an in-person event. 8 is to consider having a lead magnet. But again, I think as a start, I would just get started. This is once you started to grow, you may then want to have something people can download to get to know, like you a bit more, engage with your profile. So for example, on my LinkedIn, I'm not really that active anymore. I should be actually. I had a newsletter. I still have like my newsletters posted, and that was a good lead magnet for my business at the time, right? So people will go on there, read my newsletters, get to know about like my models and how I think. And it was a way for them to get to know, like me, before we get on a call together. So it was easier. And I suppose one more thing to consider is to think about freelancing websites, so Fiverr, Upwork. You might think, oh, it's all low ticket stuff, but you'll be surprised. It's about the quality of your proposal and how you could pitch your services on those portals. You might find some high. I think it's a lower sales cycle. I'd much rather do it the way I talked about, because I think on a marketplace, people kind of go with the mindset of I want to find the cheapest provider. So you might find it's harder on a marketplace, but I think I would not ignore that as an option for finding initial leads organically. So to wrap up what we've discussed, we've talked about how you can ensure that your niche is actually profitable. We've talked about how you can go about crafting a clear offer that people get and understand. We've talked about how you can attract your ideal customers and also how you can get them to pay for your services and ideally refer other people as well to keep coming back. So can I ask in the chat as we wrap up, what has been your biggest takeaway so far? And I'm going to also open up the floor for Q&A. So in the chat for me, what has been your biggest takeaway and any questions? I'm also going to start going. By the way, you can all, I'll rather you, let me go. I'm going to go in the Q&A box and answer whilst Bill unmute. So if you have questions, raise your hands and Bill would unmute you. So first one was from Miriam. Good morning. How can I find my clients? My clients are parents aged 3 to 4 years old with special needs. I think what we said, Miriam, is so hopefully that's now clear, right? So I think what I would do is I'll go on Facebook. So Facebook groups, for example, will have Facebook groups will have parents with special needs children. There might be Facebook groups. I'll go on there and make sure I'm a member of those groups and start getting engaged on them. I'll go on Reddit, I'll go on Quora. I think that's a good place to get started. So I'll go on Facebook organically. I would also find charities that there'll be other charities that are also solving this problem in my area. So I'll go and make friends with a charity organizer and see if I can run a webinar for them or run a session just to get myself out there and get that interaction with those client groups. Hopefully that answers that question. Yeah. If not, let me know. Bonnie's question, I'm an author who wants to increase my author visits to schools. How can I increase my clientele? I think, again, Bonnie's by being clear, right? So it's if I was as a head teacher of a school, I get contacted by thousands of authors all the time. Like, what makes you special to like all the billions of authors that are trying to get hold of me? So it's being clear on your offer, being clear on on why you're credible, right? And making sure that what you're offering them matches their own specific pain points. And ideally, I would not approach them with a sales hat first. I would approach them with a researcher. I think it tends to be a softer approach as a head teacher. So I'll go to head teacher conferences, head teacher Facebook groups, try and get myself added, LinkedIn groups for head teachers. I'll literally go and make sure that I'm part of that whole ecosystem and I'm in their social group and I'm going to their meetups. Or even better, you could be proactive and set up a meetup for head teachers. There's nothing stopping you from saying head teacher meetup, meetup.com, the website, or you can, or on Eventbrite, I can set up meetups for head teachers to attract them to come to me and give them a talk. So again, I think it's being clear on what you're offering and making sure that your language is relevant to the person's pain point. Hopefully that answers that question. This is probably the best, most informative virtual. Oh, thank you so much, Kara. Thank you. You just made my day. I'm blushing. How would you incorporate the pestle analysis first in your analysis if you're intending on addressing those forces and understand when those forces are too high as a new business owner? I would not overthink it. I think, Ryan, you already for you to ask that question is a classical overthinker question. It's just so I would quickly touch on this, like, so political, we have a new president in the US. Is Trump likely going to pass a policy? Because Trump is very verbal about what he's going to do, right? So is he already said what is he likely to pass a policy that would make my business idea redundant? If so, I need to adjust myself. And I think with this question, I would ask ChatGPT as well. So if I was worried, for example, about the political landscape of my business, I'd be like, I'll go to ChatGPT and be like, hi, ChatGPT, I'm looking to launch XYZ business. President Donald Trump has recently announced blah, 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 blah. What are your thoughts and how do you think it might impact my business? I would have that initial conversation with ChatGPT, see what it says. And if you're really struggling, then I think it's worth getting on a call to do a proper consultation so we're not talking in abstract terms. But please don't overthink it, right? Because I think this is my classic overthinker questions. Monica, how would you know if your market is oversaturated, but you really want, but it's really what you want to do? Um, I think so. Actually, I don't even think this oversaturation thing is a thing. I think the thing to do about this because oversaturation is only a problem if you're vanilla, if you're like everybody else. The less vanilla you are, the less you have problem with oversaturation because people buy from people like themselves. People are always looking for water. There's so many water brands all the time, but still you have like Fiji, you have people that launch new water brands and they still do very well. So the way I'll solve that oversaturation problem is by again being very, very clear on who exactly I want to help and being clear on why I'm the best and why I'm special, what makes me special, like so, and why I'm the most aligned to that specific demographic. So for most small business owners, really we only need 20 customers for most of us. Like 20 customers is plenty for our business. We are not trying to become, unless you're trying to become a unicorn and become the next Facebook, you're not trying to talk to everybody. You're only trying to find your 20 people in the whole world. There's 8 billion people in the world. I don't think oversaturation is a problem if you're clear on who you're talking to and also clear on why you're special. Because then your people would resonate more with you than whoever else is already available in the market. Hopefully that helps. What is IC? Oh no, Leslie, I'm so sorry. It means ideal customer profile. I hope I wasn't using it so much and I didn't, hopefully I didn't lose you in all of that. It means ideal customer profile. So it's who is your ideal customer. So you hear typically people tend to define it very abstractly. They will say things like, my ideal customer is a woman, she's in the 40s, she's like, that is quite superficial. Ideally, you want to define your ideal customer profile with their pain points, like psychographic definitions. Let me see if I can find you a quick slide. I've got something in my appendix. Yeah, there you go. So typically people would define ideal ICPs with just very superficial things like, oh, they were born in England, da, 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 da. If you did it that way, someone like Prince Charles or King Charles now, our king, and Ozzy Osbourne would be your idol. They will be very similar, but we both know. I don't know if you know both of them, you know that their needs are not likely going to be very similar, right? So, but if you define it with just demographic information, then you would have very broad concepts and very vanilla. But if you go down a bit deeper and define it psychographically with pain points, um, then you have a better definition of your ICP. But again, this is the kind of thing that is worth sitting down one-on-one or brainstorming with ChatGPT initially if you're really struggling with that. Yeah. Next question. Bill, tell me how I'm doing with questions. If not, if I miss something, please let me know. Can you touch on strategies to identify can you touch on strategies identify your imperfect client? I think it's the opposite of what we said, right? So I would much rather focus on what I want, Catty, than what I do not want. I think we're very powerful creators. So the more because if you say elephant, it's not possible not to think of a pink elephant. You would think of a pink elephant, right? So you're better off telling your brain what you want than what you do not want, right? So I'd rather focus on, first of all, being clear on my values. And then once I'm clear on my values, how aligned is this customer to my value? Number one. And then also, do they fit those four? Can they pay for my services? Can I easily find them? Are they a growing demographic? And do they find me credible? And as I mentioned, there will be no perfect customer. You might have to compromise on one of these. But if you do compromise, note it down somewhere as a risk so you can actively monitor it as you grow. Coach Sam says, use your business as an example. I'm a life coach who focuses on equipping Black professional women go from conflict to confidence. I want to know if my message is clear. I still think it's a bit broad. I think especially as a life coach, Coach Sam, I think Coach Sam, my problem with life coaching is it's not, it's a low entry industry. Anybody can be a life coach. So you have 13-year-olds, and there's no shades if there's got 13 years on the call that become life coaches because anybody can be a life coach. So if as an older person, a 13-year-old can say the exact same things that you're saying, then I don't think you're niched enough. I think as a life coach, it's important that it's super clear. I suppose I think that's still a bit that could do it a bit more refinement. Like anybody can come in and say the same thing. Conflict to confident, for example, is not. It feels like it could do with some sharpening. But let me know if you still have more questions. I want to try and get through all of this. Amisha says slide 36. I don't know what's on slide 36. Oh, I don't know. Were you answering somebody's questions, Amisha? I'm not sure what that is. Could you show that right offer slide again? Oh, yeah, I think that's what I'm showing, right? So this is the slide. Leslie, sorry, I missed this. I'm just seeing your message. Hopefully that answers that question. For research on identifying client problems to solve. Can you, oh, oh, can placing a simple survey on a web? Great question, Denise. So ideally, when you're researching client problems, my preference is that you actually get on a call with people, because if you tell them to type a survey, you will get one-word answers, or you will get answers that don't have the nuance. But if you get on a call or you meet them up in person, you can read body language. You can read when someone says something, but they don't really mean what they're saying, or they have a little like, there's a little change, and you can then probe it a bit further. I'm like, oh, I saw your face dropped when you said that. What happened? Tell me more. And you'll be surprised what asking the question, what it would open up for you. So preferably do it in person or video call, but if you can't, then I'll take survey. But my preference is that you did a video call, because you get a lot more detail by doing it in person. Okay. Michelle says, when you get referrals, how do you reach out without sounding salesy? Do you have a process for that? No, you don't, because Michelle is a simple. Those are the best leads ever. So if, for example, it's like, hi, Yemi, your friend Sarah said you might benefit from my XYZ coaching services. Um, I was just messaging to introduce myself. Here. Would you? I'd like to invite you to book a call with me. Let's go on a call and see if we're a good fit for each other. Something like that. And ideally, you get person that's, if you're worried about being salesy, because you're not at this point, you're not selling too much. You'll actually be telling your person referring you to do a warm intro. In an ideal world, you get the person that's giving you the referral to give you the person's contact, the referee, the new customers, the new lead contact details. You get that from your existing customer. And then you then take it one step further. If you're worried about being salesy, you take it one step further and be like, would you mind sending a warm intro, introducing both of us together? That'd be okay. And then I'll just be following up on that warm intro, because it's a warm intro. So I would actually leverage the fact that you know their friend in the conversation. I'm not even I would assume that you're getting into that call as credible. I would not try and sell them all over again. With you go, I mean, because their friend has already told them great things about you. So I would actually go in there with that confidence of like, hey, I come referred, I come recommended. Hopefully that answers your question, Denise. If not, let me know. Richard says, I have a similar question about finding my clients. I'm a construction manager targeting home and small business owners with owner representation to help them save time. Okay, save time, money, and headaches during construction. The difficulty I have had is trying to find customers during project ideation. Where do you suggest I look for them? Okay, so your customers are homeowners with you're targeting home and small business owners with owner representation.
We may have
So
to
I don't, yeah, would you mind
get that one by
yeah,
email. It's
yeah, would you mind emailing?
maybe the
Because I don't
time.
understand that. Thank you, Bill. Unless you can help me, Bill, with that question, because I don't, it could be that it's me, but if you, yeah. Bill, how am I doing for time? Do I still have some time to go through more
We're about
questions?
out. Why don't we take one or two more of these questions? You can kind of take a look at what's left and see if I think
Okay.
Cassie has been waiting. She had her
Okay,
hand
let's
up.
do Cassie, because I've done a few Leslie questions already, so I'll jump Leslie. So Cassie, oh, do you want to take it? Do you want to unmute people, or how do you want to do it, Bill? I'm not sure.
I
Open
go
to
ahead.
either.
She's got her question written out in Q&A,
Okay.
second from the
All
bottom.
right. Okay, so I have a professional development and consulting firm. I get lots of leads and referrals. Well done, Cassie. But find myself getting stuck in the consulting cycle, lots of consulting meetings, but not sure when to get people, when to let people know that is what I get paid to do. I think, Cassie, that's a problem with boundaries. I think it's also you not being clear on your own product ecosystem. So first of all, I think you've already solved the hardest problem, getting leads and referrals. So well done. I think it's a classic over functioning and being over responsible. So it's a boundaries problem. So I think with that, it's first of all time boxing your meetings. So I went through a period where I stopped doing discovery calls, because most of the leads I get through webinars, for example. So people already kind of know my frameworks and know about me. If they want to learn more, they can read my newsletters. I've got some videos on YouTube. I need to do a better job of actually doing a better YouTube presence. So I will work on that. But what I found, what I'm doing now, instead of what I said, right, is For a new customer, I would say to them, hey, listen, we need to do a deep dive session together. I think we need about 4 hours together, and here is my price for it. And I'm also going to offer you a money back guarantee. So if after the first 2 hours of us working together, you don't find value, then let me know and I'll give you a full refund for your money. And I found that that is a better way because, yeah, so that's one. So it's making sure you're clear on why you're getting on the call, time boxing yourself, and what the outcome is. And before we get on the call, I'm very clear on what the objectives are going to be. So what we're going to be solving, the objectives. I also offer a money back guarantee, especially if we've never worked together before and they're like, oh, I don't know who you are. I'm not sure if I want to commit that much upfront without being sure I'm going to get value back. Second thing is I would go read a book on spin selling. So I have a consultant, many service-based providers. We don't do a good sales process. So spin is a good framework for selling. So it talks about situation, problem, implication, and need to payoff analysis. I would just do a quick read up on, don't worry about reading the whole book. I think I'll just go on YouTube and find a video on that topic, Kazi, and just brush up on that and make sure that your sales calls, you have to have them be well structured and be very clear is what I'll do. Yeah. Bill, help me. What other questions should I answer?
I think we better stop at this point. We're a little over and
All right, cool.
everybody's time. So
okay, no problem. I've really had a good time, guys. Hopefully you found that useful. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any more questions for me, feel free to reach out to me. My preferred social media platform is LinkedIn. I just love LinkedIn. If not, send me an email or whichever one you prefer. I'm happy to support. Thank you, Bill. That was it.
Very good. We appreciate it. Again, the recording will go out to everyone who registered, along with whatever Emmy has for me to include in that email. And Emmy, we'll look forward to setting up another workshop in the future. Thank you.
Sounds good, Bill. Thank you so much, guys. Good to meet you all.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.